I'm sorry, Andrew Weissman, but if I recall correctly, in 2018, you were one of the people who helped write the Mueller report, and you all botched the hell out of that.
And never in my wildest dreams would I have thought we would be here. I thought we were better as a country.
Oh, yeah.
Like all these sites that have been around for creating videos and all that, like text stock videos, they're done.
But that's why Canva was one of the first to get into doing AI.
What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations. 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. I also co-host and co-produce the only online show in the world for dads and fathers. It's sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. And being part of that team since 2020, we've reached out directly and indirectly to over 400,000 dads, fathers, and male caregivers around the world. I also am a content provider and advisory board member of Indie Soup Media. Indie Soup Media, a great place if you want to check out a lovely platform that has independent content creators, over 30 plus content creators. And since they've only been around for about now 4 months, have over 14,000 subscribers on YouTube. Very impressive. So check it out. It's powered by our good friend, Dr. Tachi out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And as always, I like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, solution for someone's problem. You're watching Primetime Saturday with Aisha and LaLa live on June 29th, and it has been quite a week. So let's get the ladies up. We had quite a spirited conversation before we went live. I know it's going to carry on to here. So good day, ladies. What is going on?
Well, everything's been going on. It's been a busy week, and also it's for a busy week. We had a Wednesday show, and we want to thank everybody for watching that, because there were a lot of people who said they went back and made sure if they missed us that night that they went back to watch, and we appreciate that.
Yes, we had a hiccup last week. The internet is working. So far, so good. And again, on Wednesday, it went down a bit before we had to push back our starting time. But thanks for all the family that take the most precious thing they have in their life, time to hang out with us. Aisha K. Staggers, what's going on in your world?
Nothing, just trying to relax and all of that stuff. And, just trying to debrief from the week that was in politics and government in the United States. And like today, I did nothing but sit and watch a Living Single marathon.
Oh, wow.
On TV One. Wow. Gonna go back to it once the show is over because it's still on.
Wow. Okay.
And tomorrow, my daughter has a rare Sunday off from work. So tomorrow is going to be one of those we're on the couch days. We're just watching movies and snacks and good food, good company.
I love that.
That's nice. That's sweet. That's cool. Before we go any further, what is up, Jen Myers? Thanks to have you here. JJ Mars from Colorado. What's the Colorado weather report? And what is up, Travel Jones? Greetings and good evening. Thank you right back. Before we get any further, Primetime Saturday with Aisha and LaLa at Patreon. There's the link there. You'll see it soon in all your comments. Join the Discord group. Email me, dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. You can watch, that's too early to that. You can subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on the YouTube channel and hit the notification button. We're about 25 subscribers away from 1,500. So if you're up to it, would love to have you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also like the Dr. Vibe Show on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Also to advertise your business, product, or service on this platform or any of the platforms that we do our stuff. You can email me at dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. And there we go. Primetime Saturday Show Store. There's the link. All right. Well, we got one more comment in here. A hot Colorado day. Well, I don't think it's going to be as hot as this conversation, but let's see what goes. We ain't going to be talking about too much tonight because there's one thing that everybody's been talking about since Thursday. So it's an old song. Was it Kool and the Gang? Get down on it.
Yeah.
Get down on it. So let's get down on it. The recent presidential debate. Who wants to start? And plus, I got a bunch of articles I want to show on the screen, but I want you ladies to kick it off.
I'll let Aisha go because
I watched it live.
She did.
I got a lot to say. It was, pardon my language, but I understand this. Joe Biden's performance was not good. You know who else also had a bad first debate performance in for his second term? Barack Obama. And I don't see in any history book that there's a President Mitt Romney. So we see how that one turned out. I don't know how this one will turn out, but I do know this. There were 4 people on that stage. Every person on that stage was a mess.
Yeah.
Joe Biden from his performance and his delivery. Donald Trump from his lying, but not only just the lying, but if you were, like I was saying in our pre-conversation, if you were so focused on how bad Joe Biden's performance was, you missed a lot of things that Donald Trump said that give an inkling as to what his policies will be if he wins. And then the thing to me that was most disappointing, as someone who takes the field of journalism very seriously, were the 2 journalists that were on there. Now, my first thing after watching this was that Joe Biden needs to go back and fire every last person who advised him on how to prepare for this debate. Because if this is what a week of preparation got us, they didn't do their jobs and they should be gone. Because the moment that they learned, which was, I think, the day before, the moment that they learned that there would be no fact checking from at this point, we just need to call them facilitators, because they weren't even journalists and they weren't moderators.
No.
The question readers, when the question readers said that they weren't going to fact check, they should have torn up every note card. Because remember, the other thing too was that unlike other debates, they were usually able to bring 1 page of notes with them. This one, they were not. That was in the rules. They couldn't bring a page of notes. They were given a piece of paper and a pen, but they also they didn't have enough time to really write things down. So the moment that his people learned there would be no fact checking, they should have went to him and said, Joe, forget all the training, forget all the data statistics and what you've done and this and that. Your only job is that we know Donald Trump's going to lie. All you need to do is just check him.
Yeah, check him.
Every lie. And he lied almost 50 times. Every lie. Check every lie. Check every lie.
People won't go back and look at that. They'll just take the debate itself and won't look at the additional information that goes with it.
Well, CNN also wasn't very helpful when they did their fact checking immediately after the debate. Okay, so that was unhelpful. The other thing that was unhelpful was this format. The format went as such. We knew the thing about the microphones, but what we didn't know was that they were going to ask a question. The person had 2 minutes, just 2 minutes to respond, and then a 1-minute rebuttal. And then the person who was being rebutted could respond for 1 minute at the discretion of the question readers.
Right.
Okay. So if they didn't feel like giving extra time, they didn't have to. Now, I was keeping a tally. They gave more of that extra time to Donald Trump to spew more lies. Now, LaLa and I were talking in the Discord group I have an ounce of compassion for Joe Biden for one thing, because the day before the debate, I spent time with my nephew who has a stutter. And he was explaining something to me. And when he gets excited, that's when it comes out. And so something that, could take us less time to just spit out starts to stutter and stammer on a few words. So it takes a little time. But, that is what that is. when you have 1 minute to respond to something that, and you're spending 40 seconds stammering, you're not going to get the answer in 20 seconds. And that happened, I think, 1 or 2 times I saw, because he just got like 2 words out and they're like, okay, done.
Right.
Right.
And it ended on words, which really made it sound like he was rambling.
Right. It did. So that also didn't help the appearance. The DNC, the Democrat, his campaign, why the heck didn't you say something? If he had a cold, why the heck didn't you say so before? I think he did a lot to clean it up Friday when he did his rally in North Carolina. I think going out to people, like, I mean, even after the debate, he went to the debate after the debate there was like a group of people, his supporters, that were sitting and watching the debates together in another venue. And when he got there, there was a marked difference.
Yeah.
So,
and just to put it out there, Aisha, though, that wasn't in front of 50 million people.
Right. That's
right.
What
that's what I'm saying. There was a marked difference after that. And the thing is trying to figure out what happened. The other thing too was whoever told him to stand on the left side got it wrong. They should have had him pick the right side, because in the right side, every time he looked to the left, it would have looked like he was looking at Donald Trump. When he was looking over to his left, that's actually where the question readers were. So, but it gave the optics that this man is staring off into space. Why does he keep staring off into space? And
I know they did a toss up for something, but was the toss up also what side they could stand on? Because I know they do everything like that to a T.
Yeah, the toss up was on what side they could stand on and who also got the last 2 minutes.
Yeah. And
so he did have a few good digs in there, but the bottom line is that it was terrible. There's no sugarcoating it. It was terrible. But
I was sick to
the whole thing was terrible. The whole thing was terrible. I hated every second of it. There was not one redeeming part of that entire debate at all. The good thing, though, is that it happened in June, not October. If this debate took place in October, even if this was the September debate, it would be a problem. But this thing in June right now, let me tell you something. The only people who are still so up in arms and concerned about it are pundits, people like us who are so involved in political discussions, and Democratic operatives, because people on the ground, the actual voters, they're not thinking about it. You know what they're thinking about today? They're planning their 4th of July menu. And you know what they'll be thinking about next week? Their hamburgers, hot dogs, and potato salad. And if you know the American, the lack of focus that American people have, and how quickly things spin in and out of the American psyche, then I promise you, no one's coming back to this after 4th of July. No voters coming back to it.
Why do I see a lot of 45 campaign ads over and over and over?
They had them done within 30 seconds of the end of the debate. But guess what? He's got money. His campaign has money. He doesn't have Joe Biden money. And they're like, yeah, he outraised him. But remember where most of his campaign money is going.
Yeah.
But legal bills. So, and TV ads, I'm going to tell you something. TV political ads cost a lot of money.
Cost money.
They cost a lot of money here. You're talking like almost $1 million a spot. And if you want it to repeat over and over again, you pay for every time it repeats over and over again. And so they're going to run their ads, but guess what? Here's the other good thing too, right? Do you know where the majority of the people who are voters are going to get their news from? they're not going to get it from their local TV channels, because also too, the way that cable is around here in the country, if these people don't watch cable news, and if they're not watching their local news or whatever, they're not going to see it anywhere else. You're not going to see it on Comedy Net Central. You're not going to see it on TNT or USA. Though they don't buy political ads. You're only going to see it during cable news or during on our local ABC, NBC, CBS affiliates. And here's the other thing: the majority of Americans have abandoned cable. So guess what? They're not getting. They're not getting cable news channels, and a lot of them aren't getting ABC, NBC, CBS. And in America, you can't just turn on the TV like you used to, plug it in and get those channels. You have to have some kind of basic cable plan to even get the local channels. Yeah. And so they're not going to see those. You know where they'll get their news from?
I'm going to play those devil's advocate. This news was everywhere. It wasn't so even the even.
But you know, it was everywhere. You're absolutely right. But you know what, Dr. Vibe? I spent a lot of, you know what I did? I spent a lot more time talking to regular people, regular voters, people who are not plugged in. I'm telling you what they're telling me.
Okay.
It's like, it didn't change their votes either way.
I think it's going to be definitely on the undecided. Before we let Lala come on in, Travel Jones says it took me out when they started to talking about golf. I thought to myself, quote, what is this?
Exactly. Mess. Hot mess.
And that's where I completely wanted to throw up. Because at that point, don't get me wrong, I'm still voting for Biden, but I am extremely disappointed on how this was handled. I think that he came off very bad. And I understand colds, I understand not being prepared and all that stuff, but he's a career politician. He should know this. He should know better. And I was really upset about that. Now, what really took me out is exactly what was just said. You're both going to sit up there and argue about golf games. How out of touch are you with America if you're sitting up there arguing about who has a handicap? And I don't know nothing about no golf, and nor do I want to hear about it. I want to hear about what you're going to do for this country. I also wanted some fact checking, because that was extremely important, because that man lied the whole time. And the thing is, he played right into the hands of his supporters. You're not going to sway his supporters. You're not going to sway them, just like you're not going to sway people who are definitely going to vote for Biden. This should have been targeted at the people who are undecided or just don't really know which way to go. But no, now you just showed just how out of touch you are with America talking about a golf game. I was very upset, and I made it a point to not to look at anything else until I watched the debate. And then I made my own notes and made my own decision. And I actually told Aisha before we came on, I said, Aisha, I don't feel good about this. I don't feel good about this at all. And she was like, okay, now go and look at these two other things. And I went to look at that, and it was like it was two different men. And I was like, why couldn't you have done this on the stage of the world? The world watched this. My Portuguese friends called me and said, what was that?
Yeah. But you know what's funny, Lala? I think the other thing that American people are forgetting, and that people are forgetting, you're right, Joe Biden's a career politician, which is the reason why I went and watched many of his previous debates. Joe Biden can't debate.
No,
what people are mistaking is Joe Biden linked up with Barack Obama, and Barack Obama was such a good orator, such a good debater, except for that first debate. If you go back to the 2007 debates, when all those Democrats were there, including Barack Obama, one of the questions Joe Biden was asked was about his gaffes and his inability to debate. If you go back to the 1970s and look at his debates, Joe Biden couldn't debate.
He's not a good debater.
Couldn't debate. So people were expecting to get blood from a rock.
Yeah, but you know what? Dark Brandon is only going to take you so far, sir. Yeah. I'm going to need you to do what you need to do to win this because we don't have any other choice. And now you have all this division. Now, let me say one thing that more than anything than the debate was Van Jones. How dare you come on and give that kind of response? You're not helping. You're not helping us. If we're trying to sway people or convince people to give him another chance outside of that debate, people coming on and saying the things that he was saying is not going to help us.
Yeah. And the surrogates were out in effect right after doing the thing that the surrogates are supposed to do, which all the people, the pundits and all the news writers and story writers and editorial writers did more damage, in my opinion, than actual Democratic politicians did. You know what Kamala Harris was out there doing? She said, she said it was bad.
Did she say? Well, Jasmine Crockett said
it was bad, but she handed Anderson Cooper his life. Okay, because Anderson Cooper said, "Well, you have to admit this." She said, "Well, I'll tell you this. Yes, it was bad, but you know what else I know? I know that over 3.5 years, he's done a good job, and why people would want to throw that away and that support away over a 90-minute debate makes absolutely no sense."
Yeah,
I'm not going to judge this man I've been standing next to on 90 minutes of a really bad debate when I've seen what he's done for 3.5 years. And let's be very, very, very clear. JJ Mars, I'm going to explain why there can't be a brokered convention. And let's be and they know better. Let's be very, very clear about this. When Donald Trump was convicted, 34 counts, do you know what Republicans did? They doubled down on their support of this man.
Yes, they did. And that's nasty.
The moment that Joe Biden had one bad debate, despite this 3.5-year record that he's done, Democrats are ready to run for the hills. And then we talk
about that all the time, Aisha.
We say that Democrats aren't loyal. You're right. We talk about that all the time.
All the time.
Where is the lack of the support? Like they did with Al Franken. Remember they made him step down, come to find out the girl lied?
Yes. And he did what he felt was right, even though he knew he didn't do anything.
Exactly.
This is what makes me so disgusted with the Democratic Party.
Exactly.
Why are you not doing your job? The Republicans are running you over. You can't. Where's your spines? Where's your spines? Where is your support? Where is your getting out there and doing everything that needs to be done to get this man in office? Because I don't see it.
Yep, because you know what, and I'm going to tell you something about the media. And I know, Dr. Vibe, you said you had articles to show us and things like that. I'm going to tell you about every last one of these people who wrote those punk articles, okay? They knew what they were doing, and they should have kept it to themselves because they are influencing our politics. How do I know this? Because of all the things that they wrote. You have our House Speaker here calling for the cabinet to go to the 25th Amendment.
Yes.
That is what
it's just a mess. It's a plain mess. And I'm
sorry, but all these op-eds and things, they're not doing anything but putting their thumb on the scale for Donald Trump. And let's be very clear. We have to be very clear. This is all corporate media. You know why they're putting their thumb on the scale for Donald Trump? Because guess what Donald Trump was good for? He was good for selling papers. He was good for news and ratings. And they have admitted that. Okay.
As mentioned, I'm going to show some articles over the last few days that have been written about this. And I also have a question too.
Hopefully they're written by unproblematic journalists.
Well, we'll see.
Because if I see a Maggie Haberman article, let's not forget her name came up in Donald Trump's trial as someone he was feeding stories to.
So here's
that's right.
Here's from today. Biden is making appeals to donors as concerns persist over his presidential debate performance.
He's making he's making appeals, but let's just say this. He had his biggest fundraising hour 1 hour after the debate. Those were from small donors. So guess what? If the big donors run away, he's going to be all right financially.
Okay. Well, here's a quote from someone in the article. The couple, I guess, talking about President Biden and his wife, went to a second event in East Hampton in the home of investor Barry Rosenstein, whose wife, Lizanne, said the president was, quote, a role model for what it is to get knocked down over and over again and get up, unquote. We can waste time comparing debate nights, she continued, but you know what? It's more meaningful to compare presidencies.
Yeah.
So that was one
There's
of the...
no way in hell I'm going to be voting for a convicted felon anyway. A man shouldn't even be running, period. I don't care who he is. But I don't care who he is. It could be Donald Duck. If Donald Duck was running and he had 34 and he was a convicted felon, he wouldn't get my vote either.
Well,
but the fact of the matter is people are letting this man run.
And let's be clear. I don't think that, if you're a Democrat and you think that Joe Biden is going to serve a full 4-year term, you are not seeing the longer picture. Here's the long game. See, Republicans see the long game. Democrats are so daggone short-sighted. His vice president is a black woman. We already saw what happened after we had a black president. America is not going to elect a black woman. And we have a hard enough time electing a white woman. America is not going to elect a black woman. It would be Joe Biden's legacy to have left the opening for the first black and female and Southeast Asian president to assume his term and to have her whole 3.5 years.
America's not going to look at that. They're going to do the same thing they did with Barack Obama and call him not the first black president. Why? Yeah. Now all of a sudden you don't want to recognize that your one drop rule, oh no, black president.
But the people can't, but guess what? You can't write that out of history books.
No, you cannot.
You can't write that out of the presidential record because they keep that stuff done. But here's the other part of it too. If you've got Democrats talking about, maybe Joe Biden should step down, or we need, and guess who they're nominating? They have leaped, and this is how I know this is his plan, because when you hear the suggestions about who should be the nominee instead of Joe Biden, they leapfrog over that black woman at his side to pick every white woman, white man. I've not heard any mention of any other race of people except for white people. Period.
Wow. I didn't hear of any names that were tossed out, Aisha.
Gretchen Whitmer, Gavin Newsom, a whole bunch of other senators and politicians and whatever, governors, but they were all white. Amy Klobuchar, Diane Warren, they were all white.
That's not a big surprise.
Yeah, the confused look on her face is actually just a realization that she just said something that just absolutely just blew my mind, because I never looked at that and I didn't hear who they were trying to throw out. But this is not the time to be doing this.
Right.
This is the wrong time to be doing it. Right. If you wanted to do that, you should have done that a long time ago, not when we're just a few months out before a daggone election.
But can we get to JJ Mars's question? Because here's why I want to explain why it's completely impossible. And what they're talking about, they know it's a pipe dream. So he says a growing number of Democrat leaders are privately pushing for a brokered convention. The only way they get a brokered convention is if Joe Biden steps down. The only way Joe Biden steps down is there are two people advising him who he would listen to step down. That would be Joe Biden and that would be his sister. Okay. So both of them had said they're not going to ask him. So he's not stepping down. That's the first thing. Why can't the delegate, no? And let me explain why. Delegates for a convention in the Democratic convention are assigned by the voting public. So when you cast your vote and whoever wins, whoever wins that primary gets those delegates. Those delegates cannot go to the convention and roguely decide that they're going to go with someone else. No, because the voters put them there as delegates. He's got some 1,300 plus, almost 1,400 delegates, right? So he's in the bag. If you wanted someone else, guess what we had, America? A whole primary that lasted 6 months. So now you're having buyer's remorse. And the question you might ask is, what about the super delegates? Yes, we have super delegates. Democrats have super delegates. But guess how many super delegates there are? 796. That is about half of the delegates that Joe Biden has. Numerically, the math isn't there. So this talk of a brokered convention is literally just talk.
I think that's also to throw fear out there, and this is the wrong thing. This is a news grab,
right?
And it's weakened it in the hopes of, the people who are throwing it out is probably the people who are Trump supporters. You never know where these.
I can tell you the Democrats who are throwing it. I can tell you the Democrats who are throwing out. The Democrats who are throwing it out are vulnerable Democrats in the House and the Senate who are in races where they are in red-leaning districts. And they're trying to assure their constituents that this is a possibility so that they can get reelected. Alyssa Slotkin, I'm talking about you.
All right. So another story here. The two Bidens, the night America saw the other one.
Right.
So in this article here, the public split screen isn't new to many inside the White House, where top aides have meticulously stage managed minutiae such as Biden's sleep schedule, his orthopedic shoes, his walks to Marine One, and his climb aboard Air Force One to try to limit the blunt concerns about his age. But Thursday, and I'm going a little bit further, but Thursday's debate shattered the White House efforts to show Biden at his best, a president capable of serving until 2029 when he'd be 86. Like some campaign aides projected calm Friday and framed the debate just as a bad night that they recover from. Other Biden aides, donors, and senior Democrats were deeply shaken as 45 and other crowing Republicans questioned his fitness for office. Beyond the politics of whether Biden can beat 45 again, the aides expressed new worries about whether the president can carry out his duties for another 4-year term.
You want to know the best part of the night to me was watching the confusion on Rachel Maddow's face that there was a restaurant open after midnight in Atlanta. And it's like, I'm looking, it's a Waffle House. They're open 24/7, right? Because Joe Biden happened to show up to one and was talking to people, and people were very encouraging. When he went to the airport, they were electric sliding at the airport, and it was like probably about 300-400 people there supporting him, holding up signs and everything. I wonder if our perception is also altered by the fact that he was the one who double dog dared Donald Trump to do this debate. And so the expectations were definitely much higher. What would it have been if Donald Trump had called for this debate? Would our expectations have been lower?
Okay, and also at the end,
here's my question too. Let's not forget, okay, y'all. I'm not trying to make excuses, but Donald Trump is not. He had plenty of time to rest. All right, even though Biden was taking his time at Camp Pendleton and all that stuff, he's still running a country. Do you know how many things are going on in the world in the United States? So, you still have to be commander in chief as well. So that's not an excuse. It is really a fact. I can't even imagine the things that a president goes through in one single hour, not less alone a day.
And you never know how many terror threats come through. You'd be surprised at how many terror threats actually come through in a day to this country. So imagine, imagine what his day was like. They were like, he was up since 5 a.m., had no sleep, running the country, and then still, and see, this is again why his team needed to be fired. Why are you doing debate prep the day of the debate? That man needs to rest.
All right, I just want to just complete this article at the end here. It says what they're saying. White House spokesperson Andrew Bates told Axios that there quote is one Joe Biden who works his heart out fighting for families like the one he grew up in Scranton, and who, because of his determination, experience, and decency, keeps achieving unprecedented results for them, unquote. Zoom in. Some of the close-knit Biden aides who prepped him for the debate told confidants they were optimistic beforehand and he'd done well in their practice sessions. Now, the last 3 points in this article, the vast majority of Biden aides agree the debate was damaging, but disagree on the extent. The second last point, having an early debate was meant to make up polling deficit to Trump rather than fall further behind. And then finally, by having it in June, Biden's team has several months to recover.
They're going to need it, and he better get some better teams.
But here's the other thing. If I was on his team, first thing first, I would start. His team spent the other part too is that his team spent way too much time in the last 6 months not letting him do interviews. Okay? That's also how you practice getting your message together and getting it succinct and being able to say it. This debate format was meant, and I said this on Twitter many times, this debate format was meant for someone who speaks in 1 and 2 minute sound bites. That's Trump's wheelhouse. Joe Biden does not speak in sound bites, period. I mean, that's why Donald Trump just knew, I throw out this slide, this slide, this slide, this slide. He's very disciplined when it comes to, if you repeat something more than once, if you repeat it 3 times, people start to remember. If you repeat it 6 times, people never forget it. Okay. So that it's like he basically is following the playbook that was written in his whatever his book was called. But
the art of the deal.
Yeah, the art of the deal. But beyond that, Joe Biden's people, the first thing that they needed to do, you want to talk about a campaign ad? Show all those people, because if you go through Twitter, there are people just everybody. I mean, people are just like, no, I'm still with him. I'm still with him. I'm still with him. It's not, I think it's more hype on those of us who watch this news ecosphere. I really do.
I would really like to have a focus group of independent voters to hear what they have to say after.
MSNBC did do it, but you know how many independent voters that they had? 4. And you can't, and I'm telling you, as someone who knows data and who knows how to do research, that's not a big enough sample to even say that this is representative of anything. But I'll tell you this: the majority of independent voters in America, anyway, the majority are right-leaning or are former Republicans. So let's be very clear.
Say that again, Aisha.
Huh?
Say that again.
The data says that the majority of independents in this country are right-leaning or are former Republicans. The majority of independents. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right-leaning doesn't necessarily mean they were Republican or were former Republicans.
Okay. I want to throw another thing that came out during the post coverage. It was a quote many years ago made by Bill Clinton. This is going back to an article back to 2022, and it came up in some of the post coverage of the debate. Strong and wrong beats weak and right. That was President Bill Clinton's shrewd analysis 20 years ago. Now it'd be 22 years ago from this article. Of the Democrats' failure to make gains in the first midterm election in George W. Bush's administration. A number of commentators said this could be reflected on this most recent debate, that 45 was strong and wrong, but he beat the weak and right. Thoughts?
I don't like those polls. I never trust those.
Well, I mean, the other side of it too is that Bill Clinton didn't support his own VP the way that he should have in the first place when the Supreme Court took the election from him that he basically won, and then tries to say it's because strong and wrong beats weak and right. No, the Supreme Court put their thumb on the scale. I have the Clintons right now are just like not my favorite people today.
No.
So, and let's not forget the racist things Bill Clinton said about Barack Obama when Hillary was running against him and their races were getting kind of tight. He's unreliable, and he's still Barack Obama won because he could no longer be referred to as America's first Black president. So there are issues with Bill Clinton.
Which he takes very seriously. Now, I know we laugh about that, but he does take that very seriously.
He sure does, because Alice Walker said it.
Yeah.
So where do we go from here?
Dr. Vibe, I don't know.
You know what?
I'm telling you that I'm sick to my stomach. My husband and I had a very long conversation today about how we are very sick, heartsick over our country. Our country is just not where it needs to be, and we don't know how it will ever get back on track. We know how important that it is. We talk about these things that are so very important to us every week, but and we make it a point to understand the things that we come on here and talk about, and we take into consideration what's important for our communities. But the general Americans want to know, what you going to do for me? Am I going to be able to eat next week? I can't afford a house. And y'all up there talking about golf. These are very dangerous times. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. America is burning, and it's going to be a very long time before she rises from the ashes like a phoenix, because we are way too divided.
Yeah. You know, I think people need to just take a chill pill, relax, stop the hand-wringing, bedwetting, and pearl clutching. And you raised this point, Dr. Vibe, about whether or not this is going to stick, and I'm going to tell you why it's not. Again, there's one other reason why it's not. Because guess what happens in 2 weeks? The convicted felon gets sentenced. No one's going to be thinking about this debate come July 11th.
We'll talk about it later, though. The Supreme Court may be giving him some pushback on some stuff. We'll talk about that.
No, they are, but guess what? They cannot change what happened. In America, they cannot change what happened in a state court. That's a done deal.
But the January 6th thing,
that's different. But I'm talking about what's going to get rid of this. That case isn't even pending. What's going to wash this stuff out about this debate is what's going to happen July 11th. And let's be very clear. I don't think a lot of you know this. Donald Trump had to get permission from his parole officer to even go to Atlanta to attend the debate. The guy that did the parole hearing with him, he had to get his permission to even go and attend the debate. Wow. You know why you didn't see Donald Trump in Atlanta afterwards? He had to report back immediately after the debate. Period. Wow. So July 11th, when he has to be sentenced, our news cycles are so short. They're not going to be talking about this debate. It's going to be wall-to-wall coverage 24/7 about the sentencing. And you're going to see, instead of political operatives flooding our media space, it's going to be legal analysts, period.
But that's what's wrong, I think, Aisha. You know what? We rush so fast through these news stories. You can't even process one thing before you have to process another one that is absolutely horrible. We're exhausted.
Yeah. Politics moves way too fast in this country. And that's something that someone was saying yesterday. It was like, every 30 minutes, if you were to refresh, American news, every 30 minutes, something different comes on on the politics. Yes, people are still talking about the debate, but guess what? You know why they're not talking about the debate wall-to-wall coverage? They didn't get to talk about a wall-to-wall coverage yesterday because SCOTUS came down with those decisions.
Yeah.
Had those decisions not come down, that would have been the only thing that was talked about.
We will get to that.
Right, I'm making that point that would have been the only thing that was talked about, and that shows you how short our attention span is.
Yeah.
I think this. Well, we'll see. But another interesting lens to the debate. Do you know that CNN did not invite any black reporters?
No, they invited black reporters. They didn't invite any black-owned media.
Yeah,
at all. None. Of 800 different, right? Of 800 different owned media
houses,
organizations, outlets, they didn't invite any black-owned media, which is yet another reason why, not just this, I think that they should not be allowed to host another debate. And also too, I want to know who chose the questions for this debate. CNN has yet to answer that. I want to know who chose the order, because some of those questions were really ridiculous.
LaLa, you don't sound too optimistic.
No. And that's just for today. I will get up and brush my knees off, and I will still continue the fight. But I will tell you, my initial thoughts on this really are not good. This is not a good look. And I do know that we move on fast. I know that there'll be something new tomorrow. But I need my commander-in-chief to come out and be a little bit more bright-eyed and bushy-tailed than what I saw on the debate night.
Then let me ask you though, why can't America produce better candidates?
It's all about the money and the
because of the money in politics, and a lot of that has to do with the super PAC law. That was something that the Supreme Court under the Bush Supreme Court did. And the legislature under Bush did. They allowed for the influx of money to come in like that, and that has been the biggest problem.
And I mean super PACs with billions.
Super PACs do not have to report. Super PACs do not have to report where the funding is coming from or how much. There's no cap on what you can donate. For example, if I were to make a donation, I'm capped in a year at $2,700 of what I can donate as an individual to any particular candidate, right? But if I was a super PAC, I could donate millions and millions and millions of dollars. That's why you see these people who are donating $50 million to the Trump campaign. They're not donating it directly to the Trump campaign. They're donating it to the Trump campaign through a super PAC.
Yeah. So there's also
individuals they can't do it directly. Yeah. Right. So but I will say this. I think the reason it's not so much I have hope. I think I'm a little bit more encouraged because of the three of us. I'm right now, I'm the only one here on ground and walking around and seeing how it's playing out.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm telling you, chill. Because it's when you walk away from the TV.
I'm chill. I'm not in America.
No. I mean, I'm talking about in general, even the pundits and all that. Because when you walk away from the TV, you put down your cell phone and you just walk and you go to Walmart and all that other stuff, and nobody's talking about it. Nobody's thinking about it. Nobody's picking up. They're just not. When you go to like different parades and things, and I'm sure nobody's even talking about the campaign anyway, let alone talking about the debate. If they're not talking about the campaign or whatever, it's June. I'll tell you this, having done some campaigning, it's June. The pot of Americans who are undecided is not going to move the needle in November.
I want to ask also, put it as a conversation point, and I think we discussed this before we went live. Aisha, you don't think there's going to be another debate?
No, Absolutely
I don't
not.
either. I don't either.
I'll tell you, and I think that both of them will concede to not doing another debate. Trump, it's not in Trump's interest to do another debate because this debate got exactly what he wanted the news cycle to be. The news cycle was off him and his convictions and the horrible things that he was saying in Project 2025 and focus on how bad Joe Biden is, right?
He got the upper hand in this one,
Got the upper
he's
hand.
not going to come back for next.
Not only that, but he still would have to get permission. And depending on what happens July 11th, he might not be able to travel. Okay, he might be on house. You might find him on house arrest. But then,
how is this going to work if he makes it? If he needs to go overseas to meet with world leaders,
exactly. So Joe Biden. And here's the thing. And here's the thing. You got to remember, Trump did what he did because he had to. You know why? You know what that tells me? Because that's a man who's scared as to what's going to happen in 2 weeks. Okay. Now, Joe Biden, on the other hand, why on earth would he agree to doing another debate after this one was so bad and he got reamed so much for it? I don't think either one of them wants to do another debate.
No. Well, I will have to say one nice thing about Trump. At least he wasn't so orange this time.
Oh, shame.
Well, that's because he can't go anywhere. He can't go to Mar-a-Lago and get in his tanning bed.
Woo.
So let's.
You notice that when he does his little rallies and things, he's got to get the permission to travel.
Yeah. Wow.
Every time.
Nobody's talking about that, Aisha. That's pretty powerful.
So if you're the Democratic Party, if you're the Republican Party, what's your next step? And then if you're the Democratic Party, what's your next step?
If you're the Republican Party, you're going to do nothing. You're going to do absolutely nothing. But here's the problem. American politics and campaigns are won by putting in work. They're going to be, here's the bad thing for them, is they think they did something. They got the upper hand. So they're going to rest on their laurels. They're going to be really, really lazy for the next 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. The Democratic campaign, Joe Biden's campaign, however, is going to be working really, really, really hard for the next 2 weeks.
They better be.
The only time Republicans are going to start working,
I would say longer than the next 2 weeks for the rest.
I'm saying the next 2 weeks for a reason. Because in 2 weeks, when Donald Trump is sentenced, then you will see Republicans get off there, and they're only going to work hard to spin the story and try and blame Joe Biden and to spin the story. Now, Joe Biden's going to continue to work hard, but Republicans, again, are going to be at the shiny object. And so, the shiny orange object. Look, the shiny orange object. But I'll be honest with you. Let's see what happens in 2 weeks. How things shift in 2 weeks, because guess what? The polls might have Biden down for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
A presidential candidate being sentenced for crimes does something to polls.
Oh, I don't know. I think America's going to be a very forgiving.
No, because you got to remember, let me tell you something about the polls that you read. Most of the polls that you read, they're oversampling Republicans. That's why they're swinging the way they are. They're oversampling Republicans because they are getting their sample through calling people on landline phones. The majority of people who have landline phones are older people who swing right. CNN did one poll that they put out after the debate and had to admit they oversampled Republicans and then had an almost 6-point margin of error. There's nothing about that poll that could be reliable, that was valid. There are two main things in any kind of research study you should always look for: the reliability data and the validity data. The reliability data tells you that if they repeat the same test or study or whatever over again, the same exact way, they're going to get the same results. The validity tells you whether or not the questions that they asked were actually what they were trying to get at. And oftentimes when you look at these political polls and they say they have the headline that says one thing, when you get down to it and you look at the questions, they never asked that question, period. So polling is trash in America. So if you rely on any kind of poll, it's all trash. And that's why they always do it with colleges, in addition to a paper, because guess what these people who do the college polls know what to do. They know how to manipulate the data. Any poll, any study can be manipulated. That's the one thing I learned in grad school. I learned how you can do it. That's just basic data and statistics. So they can, you're gonna see these polls probably won't change, but guess what isn't also going to change about them? The fact that the majority of the people, when 60% of the people that you're polling are Republican, what do you expect to get?
All right. LaLa, if Republican Party, next step, Democratic Party, next step.
Well, the Republican Party is going to do what they always do. Right now, they know that they have to rally behind Trump, so they're going to do that. However, I will say I have been seeing more old school Republicans, old school belief Republicans coming out and saying this. Y'all don't do this. Do not vote this man back into office. He's not good. So their own party is imploding. However, the news is going to focus on the GOP, that is MAGA GOP. They're going to continue to do what they can to push anything that they can, halt things that are being looked at in the House and the Senate, and try to make it look like they're making good moves when they are not. The Democrats need to get it together, because they are, if you ask me, and my grandmother said, look at all them chickens in the yard. They just walking around scratching. I'm going to need y'all to get together and be the wolf, because you're not good at that. And so I'm going to need you to get real good at that. Now, I will say Jasmine Crockett has been out here fighting and giving true facts and keeping the lay of the land. I appreciate that, but we're going to need more like her. And if they don't do that, it will be to the detriment of us.
I'm going to put in one more thing before we go to break. I just saw.
Can I make two more comments?
Go ahead.
That I think are very important.
Actually, let me put up this article before you put your two more comments. I just saw it, and it's very interesting. Let me just. I hope it's the right one here. Yes. So this article, how 45 played a key role in Biden's debate disaster. So I'm just going to read a bit of it. Thursday debate couldn't have gone worse for Joe Biden, but it wasn't just his own doing. Over the course of the 90-minute debate, the president was repeatedly upstaged by 45, who took control from the outset by unleashing an onslaught of invectives that Biden could not match. After his abysmal performance sparked Democratic panic, Biden acknowledged how the debate had gotten out of hand for him at a North Carolina rally on Friday, saying he does not, quote, debate as well as he used to, unquote, but asserting he knows, quote, how to do the job. This is the article writer saying his Friday rally had a decidedly different dynamic from the Thursday debate. One key difference, there was no 45.
Not only was there no 45, but also remember, one of the rules of that debate was there was no audience.
Yeah.
Okay. It's clear that Joe Biden, when there's an audience, and that's the difference between when he showed up to the post-debate party, there was an audience there. You could see him spark up. So clearly they both need audiences. But when Trump has an audience, if the Democratic audience could and send him spiraling. And I think not having that also helped him. But the two comments I wanted to make were, LaLa, you said something very important about the establishment Republicans and what they've been saying. Let's not forget, this is the other thing that happened this week, and it happened the day before. Adam Kinzinger and Duncan, the former lieutenant governor of Georgia, both endorsed Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Unequivocally endorsed him. They did it on their social media. They did ads, and then they held a joint press conference and did that. That's that. And then the other thing I want to say is that, J.J. Mars was mentioning the thing about the brokered convention. Let me tell you this. If this was even possible, here's the danger of having that too. Not just the fact that they can't do it, but here's the danger in doing that. Remember, Democrats are united, can be united behind Joe Biden. People have their, there are things they like, there are things they don't like, whatever. But Democrats cannot decide between now or even just over the course of a 4-day convention, who would they vote for, who would they put in as the candidate instead of Joe Biden. Do you not remember the last time we had an actual primary between two Democrats? Viable primary, how long that went with Bernie and Biden, with Bernie and Hillary. Don't forget Hillary and Barack. There's no way that would happen. And not only that, but a broker convention. Remember what they say about the 1968 convention, which was a broker convention, DNC convention. It descended into chaos. A broker convention will descend into chaos. And the last thing we would need would be for that convention to look like the House speaker vote on the Republican side. Remember the chaos that was. And nobody, here's the thing, Joe Biden might not do as good in the polls or whatever, but there's one thing that for sure is that at least we can say we're not a party that's in complete chaos except for people putting their thumb on the scale. Because guess what? If that happened at the convention, no one's going to want a party that is in chaos, in control, because we already got
hold on a second. But there's enough people that support the Republican Party now.
No, but we already have a party that is in chaos right now. Put it this way, the House Dems are actually on point to win back the House. Those polls are vastly different than the presidential polls. Those candidates are actually outperforming Joe Biden in their districts by 10 and 12 points.
Yes, now that's true. Yes.
But and the reason for that is because the House is in a free fall chaos on the Republican side. And if we show that at the convention, guess what? Lose the House, lose the Senate, and the White House.
Period. And that is the worst case.
That would be even worse because there would be no stopping Project 2025. But not only that, if that happens and Project 2025 goes into effect, there will not be another Democratic president ever. Period.
On that note, we're going to take a break. Ladies need a break on this one. We will be back in timeout. And after the break, we're going to talk about a number of interesting things that the U.S. Supreme Court ruled on in the last week and some upcoming things, especially one on this coming Monday, they're going to be ruling on. So keep it locked. It was an entertaining and very mundane first hour. Come back for our next hour where we're going to have some more epic conversations. So you're watching Primetime Saturday with Aisha and LaLa. Keep it locked, and we'll see you back in 2 minutes.
And that's what I feel like. You feel like you're the Harriet Tubman of the mind.
I am.
I feel like I'm I'm one of the Harriet Tubmans of intelligent Black people. Like, I want to liberate y'all from like being left behind and ignored and oblivion. No, really, the rappers get all the attention. Seriously, does anybody else feel this way? Like ignorant Black people, they'll be all up, getting all the headlines on the Shade Room.
Overly sexualized Black folks.
Like the twerkers and the, just people that, don't always represent the best of us, the diversity, like people like Dr. Vibe. Like, everybody should know about people like Dr. Vibe. Dr. Vibe he's trying to do good work for Black people.
Dr. Vibe from Toronto. Good to see you, my brother. Dr. Vibe. Everybody follow Dr. Vibe. He has a
show. He's very good at what he does, and I have a lot of respect for him. The men who are also doing the same thing. I see Dr. Vibe in here. He's a great brother. Everybody should follow Dr. Vibe, by the way. He's a smart brother in Canada, and we need to follow smart people. So follow Dr. Vibe if you see him in the chat. And Dr. Vibe, say your name in the chat so people can see you. I want you to click on his name, and I want you to go follow him, please, because I want these men and women that are doing the right things to get the support they deserve. Hey, Dr. Vibe, how you doing, brother? Again, like I always do, I got to say everybody should go follow Dr. Vibe. He's got a great show. Dr. Vibe, I know Dr. Vibe's got a kingdom because I see your channel. I see you pouring into that every day. Everybody should follow Dr. Vibe, by the way. Look him up, Dr. Vibe, V-I-B-E. He's a great friend of me and my wife, and I love this guy. Okay, so let me hop into this. What's up, Dr. Vibe? How you doing? Everybody, if you see Dr. Vibe in the chat, everybody go follow the Dr. Vibe show. Dr. Bob is a real smart brother and a good human being. I like the guy a lot, and he's very intelligent. And I think everyone should pay attention to what he's got going on. We got to shine the spotlight on the intelligent Black people out here that are really doing the good work. Don't just pay attention to the rappers and the celebrities. You know, a lot of these people are losers. Your true winners are your people in your community that are really having your back. Helping us to have stronger families and a stronger community. So Dr. Bob is in that category. So you might see the Dr. Bob show in this chat. If you see him, please go follow him. Okay. All right. So anyway.
All right. Always shout out to Dr. Boyce and Dr. Alicia Watkins. Appreciate them 150%. And we mentioned her earlier. There she is, Dr. Tachi. Good evening.
Dr. Tachi.
Dr. Tachi, check out all the things she does on Indie Suit Media. Check it out. Actually, you can catch replays of this, edited versions of this epic conversation, other ones on indiesuitmedia.tv. Go there and you catch it. Actually, they do repeats. I believe, Dr. Tachi, correct me if I'm wrong, Friday afternoons you see repeats of this epic conversation, 1 hour version. All right. Let's continue. And people say, you're only going to be doing 2 stories tonight. There's enough for 2 stories. We don't need to do it. So we're going to talk about some of the recent decisions of the United States Supreme Court. So people say, what are you talking about? So let me show you some of the things that they have done some things on. So Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court allows cities to ban homeless camps. U.S. Supreme Court has ruled in a 6-3 vote along ideological lines that cities can ban homeless people from sleeping rough.
They even went further than that.
Oh, yeah. It says the ruling says that local governments can enforce laws against people sleeping in public places without being in violation of the U.S. Constitution's limits on cruel and unusual punishment. That's one thing. Keep on going. Pardon me?
If you take a nap outside with a blanket, because that's what it says in the ruling, and somebody thinks that you're homeless or you're just outside sleeping, period, you can be arrested and fined for vagrancy.
Here's another one. U.S. Supreme Court weakens federal regulators in boosts for business. Billions of dollars are potentially at stake in challenges that could be spawned by the, quote, unwarranted shock to the law. The Supreme Court has upended a 40-year-old decision that made it easier for the United States federal government to regulate the environment, public health, workplace safety, and consumer protections, delivering a far-reaching and potentially lucrative victory to business interests. On Friday, the court's 6 conservative judges, sounds familiar, overturned the 1984 decision, quickly known as Chevron, a long-term law, a target of conservatives. The liberal justices were in dissent. Billions of dollars are potentially at stake in challenges that could be spawned by the high court's ruling. President Joe Biden's administration's top Supreme Court lawyer had warned such a move would be an unwarranted shock to the legal system. That's another thing that was passed. Let me go to something else. Because people don't realize the Supreme Court got lots of power, family. I don't know if you're in America, how much people may not realize. They have a whole pile of. Let's go to another article. And this is a summary. The court overturned one of its own most important, the Chevron doctrine that we talked about that. Then also the court narrowed the statute that prosecutors have relied on the cases of hundreds of rioters who took part in the January 6th Capitol attack for obstruction of an official proceeding. The 63 ruling, again the 63 ruling, could have profound implications for participants on that day in 2021. It could also affect the federal criminal case against 45, who is charged with similar offenses in Special Counsel Jack Smith's investigation into the assault. And then the court will issue the final opinions of its terms on Monday, including 45's claim to absolute immunity. The judges have yet to issue rulings in the 4 cases that were argued during the term, including 45's claim of immunity from prosecution for trying to undo his 2022 election loss. Earlier this week, the court ruled to allow emergency abortions in Idaho. For now, it rejected this Purdue Pharma case is a very interesting case. Purdue Pharma's bankruptcy settlement plan stripped the Security and Exchange Commission of a major tool in fighting securities fraud and put a hold on an attempt by the Environmental Protection Agency to reduce harmful air pollution that drifts across state lines. Ladies, there's a whole bunch of stuff there. Where you want to start, or if you want to start with anything? Supreme Court?
Let's start with Idaho. Because the Idaho case, they kicked it back, right? Basically, they didn't say that the abortions are allowed. What they actually did when you read the ruling, and this is what Ketanji Brown Jackson's dissent was about, they actually just kicked it back to the lower court in Idaho, which then said, guess what? Ban stands.
Yep.
That's that first one. The one on the Chevron thing is very interesting. And the reason that I look at it this way, if you want to know how this impacts you and how it's connected to other things, particularly Project 2025. It's also, and the reason why I wanted to start with Idaho is because it's connected to this, it's connected to that in this way. One of the first things that they decided that they wanted to do after they got the ban on abortion was to go after IVF and to go after birth control. Now the Supreme Court says that the courts, not medical professionals, people who know how healthy or not these things are, these procedures and these medications are, also includes mifepristone, can say that these are not healthy or they are healthy and ban them. This is that Project 2025 thing, because they do want to ban birth control. Lindsey Graham is out here. Lindsey Graham, who will never get any woman pregnant ever. So I don't even know why he's talking about birth control. They can basically say, no, we're not going to have birth control. No, we're not going to do IVF. No, we're going to ban this. Mifepristone's banned. So that is one of those things with health. But now it doesn't just go to abortion and reproductive health care and all that. Cancer medications. They can decide that certain cancer treatments are not going to be allowed or banned. For me, it's very scary because some of these treatments they can consider would impact me with my seizures. I don't like having seizures, but they seem to think that they have the decision to make, not my doctors. And when it comes to the EPA, one of the things Donald Trump said in the debate was like, you know what? I like water. I made sure that we had H2O. I don't think that he realizes that H2O is just the elemental component of water. But anyway, rolling back the EPA, that means our water is going to be less safe. Our air, emissions testing, they're going to get rid of emissions testing for cars. Our air will be less safe. One of the things that they have said in Los Angeles is that with the increase in the EPA standards is that the smog has gone down.
Oh, baby, I can attest to that.
Yeah. And here's another thing that they're going to oversee too, right? Your food won't be as safe because
it's not safe now.
It's not safe now, but the food is also one of the things that they can regulate again. Okay. That's one of the things that the courts can regulate, not the health professionals. And
what
so
they did basically gave them their own selves power. They judged in the rule of the favor to protect them. And once again, I will say they need term limits, just like the congressmen and the representatives. Everybody needs term limits. You don't get to be a politician for the rest of your life or on this. They're detrimental and they're deadly to us right now because of who is on there and who lied to get on there. Because there were many of them that lied when they were questioned before they were put in that they would never do these things. And what did they do? They did that. Now, isn't that perjury?
Yeah. And not just that. Because you were right, they were sworn into it. But not just that, especially with these regulations, that's scary. Remember how many judges, because remember, and they're not saying it's just Supreme Court justices who get to make these decisions. The federal judges get to make these decisions as well. Well, guess who appointed a record number of federal judges while they were president? Donald Trump.
Wow.
Which means he has all of those federal judges who are lifetime appointees sitting and ready to go to do these things for Project 2025.
You ladies have mentioned that periodically for a long period of time. People don't realize the man did a master stroke there.
But they're already implementing this.
Yeah,
they're already implementing this. This is not after the election. They've lined up their people, and they're already doing it here. The playbook has already been put into play.
There you go. I want to talk about this Purdue Pharma. Wow, what a case!
The only reason that they're not ruling in their favor is because the Sackler family did something. I read it really quick in passing, but they rubbed somebody the wrong way, and that's why this judgment is not going in their favor.
And that's the only reason.
That's the only reason. They rubbed somebody the wrong way who has influence with these judges.
I think I'm going to be using the term 6-3 for a long time.
Oh, not just 6-3. And here's the other danger of Donald Trump getting voted in. Remember, there are at least 2, maybe 3 justices who will likely retire.
Yes.
We're talking Alito, Thomas, and Sotomayor.
Well, I think they're going to definitely, because they got too much heat on them and they've gotten everything that they want out of this.
Mm-hmm. And Sotomayor because of her health.
Yes.
Although my mother is a 70-plus-year-old diabetic, and Sonia Sotomayor is just 70, and if you take care of yourself, it's not like you're going to keel over.
Well, what are both your thoughts on this Supreme Court, or just the Supreme Court in general?
Got to expand it. There's no other way, and that's why we need the House and the Senate and the White House. That's the only way we can expand the court, because unless there's no way to get around this 6-3 majority of lifetime appointees without expanding the court.
Exactly. And that's where we are right now. And unless that happens, that we're stuck with everything that they're doing.
Now, what would the Republicans do if they won the Senate, the House, and the presidency with the Supreme Court?
Replace Thomas and Alito with conservative people and Sotomayor. And then at that point, it would be a 9-1? 9-2? Yeah, 9-2 Supreme Court.
Wow.
Because it would just be Kagan and Ketanji.
The Supreme Court. I say, who is getting more heat? The House, the Senate, or the Supreme Court from average Americans?
The Supreme Court. They're doing things that they promised that they would never do.
The Supreme Court's getting more heat because the decisions that they're making right now are directly impacting people's life. The reason that the House isn't getting the same kind of heat that SCOTUS is because they haven't done anything. They haven't passed any legislation. They've done absolutely. They've more bills have died in committee. It's like, I'm telling you, Congress is the place where bills go to die. they're not doing anything. They've passed more resolutions and held more weaponizing of government meetings and press conferences and all that stuff. They haven't passed one good thing for American people.
No.
There have been some bipartisan things that have gone through, but those were things that if they had not agreed to, their constituents would have been really
right.
pissed.
And that's the only reason.
So up until then, recently, did I use this term average American? I don't know if it's the right word to use, but did Americans have more respect for the Supreme Court than the House and Senate?
Yes, I would say
it was more of a 5-4 court.
Right.
Before it started to descend into this kind of chaos, before the last 3 appointments, you had a little bit better respect for the Supreme Court.
Right.
The last 3 appointments by Donald Trump, I think people started not having respect for the court when Mitch McConnell denied Barack Obama his Supreme Court pick.
Exactly.
And honestly, I think that the American people should go back and sue Mitch McConnell.
I do too.
For violating our civil rights.
Mitch,
he voted a president in. There's no rule that says that you cannot, that the sitting president can't put in a Supreme Court pick before an election.
Mitch.
Especially when he wasn't running.
Mitch.
Okay?
Remember,
I'm sorry, Mitch McConnell decided to do it. And at that point, it's like, come on now. We should really go and sue him. Sue him till he freezes it behind all the way out of Kentucky.
Be careful.
All the way back to Kentucky.
Be careful. You should be careful now. All right. I think we have called it an epic conversation. I think that is a wrap. We got a few last comments here. Dr. Tachi was right. We replays are on Fridays at 5 p.m. on Indie Soup Media, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Minnie on Cam. Hey, how you doing, Minnie on Cam, who appears on the Morning Vibe once a month and talks about challenges those who have disabilities incur. She's been, very, very insightful stuff. We chatted yesterday on the Morning Vibe about the challenges about those who are disabled wanting to become entrepreneurs, the challenges they have to face. Dr. Tachi asks, would Mitch McConnell even recognize he was being sued? God.
No.
If he came out of his shell, that turtle. I swear, somebody else, look, I don't know, Dr. Tachi, but Franklin's dad ought to be sued. And I do mean Franklin.
OMG. Okay, I think we better stop now. Oh my gosh. And yes, Minnie says, yes, I was researching the new rules in Canada's disability benefit. It is not pretty. And she actually has a lot of information about those who are disabled in the U.S. also.
Wow.
So she has a very...
I would like to talk to her because the seizures are considered a disability.
Yes.
Okay. We'll see if we can make that happen. All right, family. As usual, I want to thank the ladies.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah. Go ahead. It's your ladies' show. I'm just steering the ship.
Make sure you're registered to vote. Check your registration. And the third thing, tomorrow is the last day of the month. Make sure you go and look at your state government website. And I don't mean the government website. I mean your House and Senate website. See the bills that they passed that go into effect July 1st. I just realized that I saw that today in Connecticut, that we have a whole lot of new laws that go into effect July 1st that I was not aware of until I read them. Make sure you go, because all of the legislative sessions are done in states. So go and make sure you find out what new laws have passed and what things go into effect July 1st. So you're not doing anything that they can then try and arrest you for and hijack your vote.
Enough said. That is it. All right. As always, want to say thank you for the time that the ladies have given us. Contact information time. Here we go.
I made it easy. You can find me on this link. It takes you to everywhere that I'm on, and bit.ly/Laura Key Info.
Good. Next up.
You can find me on either Instagram or Twitter, AK Staggers on Instagram, Aisha Staggers on Twitter.
Wonderful. All right. And myself, these are some of the places that you can get in touch with me. The drvibeshow.com, YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, the drvibe show. Instagram at the drvibeshow, X/Twitter at drvibeshow, and email dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. All right. That is coming to a wrap. We're going to do some little bit of housework. Also, you can watch replays of this epic conversation on the Dr. Vibe Show, YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Also, the Dr. Vibe Show website, the drvibeshow.com, and also edited 1-hour versions on Indie Soup Media. All right, so a few things before we jump off. Primetime Saturday Show Store, there is the link. Primetime Saturday with Aisha and LaLa at Patreon, there's a link. Join our Discord group. Email me dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. Subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show. Again, especially on YouTube, we're about 30 subscribers away from 1,500. So if you're up to it, would love your support. Also follow me on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And also advertise your business, product, or service on our platform. Please feel free to email me dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. So I want to say a few quick shout outs. First of all, to the ladies, 2 shows in 3 days. And actually for LaLa, it's 3 shows in 3 shows in like 3 days. Actually, 3 shows for LaLa in 3 days. For us, 3 shows or 2 shows in 3 days. And for LaLa, it's about 4 shows this week. She's on other platforms. She's an international celebra these days. You know what I'm saying? I also want to say thanks for everyone for watching live on the replay, listening on the replay. Also, thank you for people on X/Twitter. A lot of you, especially on Aisha and LaLa's accounts, a lot of people watching on their feed. So I want to thank you for that. As always, if you're in Canada, this weekend is a long weekend, so celebrate it. And next weekend, I don't know if the ladies will be here or not because it is a long weekend in the U.S. It's 4th of July. Up here, it's Canada Day weekend. So whatever you're doing, always be safe, be good. As always, don't just manage your time, manage your energy. Remember to give yourself grace. I actually said that wrong. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions and aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. And remember, don't just manage your time, manage your energy. Remember to give yourselves grace. God bless. Peace to all. Keep the faith and walk good.